management, I said, it depends who would like to implement that. So it depends on the scenario or the business into which they are. So that's business. The warehouse management takes care of that. Business warehouse management, like I said, that is basically what they do is you have a system wherein the data from your SAP ECC system or your S4HANA system goes into this BW system, wherein it is used for analysis kind of a thing. Last 3 months, what were the sales? For example, what were the sales depending on the advertising expenses, kind of a thing. Slice and dice. So what that, so they come to know where they are spending more and whether there is a return on investment and so on. So business warehouse, that is the main functionality of that. Then in many wherever SAP is used, there is always a SAP basis team, which is very important. So um, many organizations you will find SAP basis and security will be a single team, or there could be companies wherein SAP basis will be a different team and SAP security will be a different team. Uh, Wherever they have, so it depends on the basically the manpower constraints. So uh, if they have got enough manpower, then you will have the basis team separate and a security team separate. So basis team basically takes care of the entire SAP server landscape, which could be your development, quality and production systems and sandbox systems, and not only SAP but also your other connected systems like your SAP Solution Manager, you can say, or your BW systems, and for example your disaster recovery servers and so on. So that's taken care of by SAP Basis, where they are involved in installation, upgrades, migration, and day-to-day support to the users as well as your internal functional teams. Okay, SAP security team, basically, if there is a security team, separate team, then what they are involved is they are their prime responsibility is giving access to users and ensuring that there are no SOD conflicts. For example, SOD here, what I mean is, for example, any person who is creating a purchase order should not have access to receive the material. There is a conflict of interest. I create a purchase order and I also receive the material, so that is a conflict. So these kind of and things, SAP security team has to take care of it. They have to ensure that there is proper access which has been given. For example, let's say a person who is doing materials management should not have access to the finance module, kind of a thing. So that is, I have just briefly told you in this thing how SAP security team has to work. In detail, we can see later. One module which is also used by if it is used by HR, then that is a human resources. But in our Indian scenario, there are many companies they don't use this HR module. But again, it depends if some would, because there are many modules which are available. But I know few companies who are using SAP HR. It takes care of the human resources module, like right from taking up candidates into the company till their salary and so on. So what we'll do is we'll briefly touch upon the basic architecture of SAP. So it has got three layers basically. You have got something called a presentation layer, then you have got an application layer and the database layer. So what happens is basically, for example, any user would like to connect to a particular application, and then each application again in its backend has got a database where the data is stored. So in the presentation layer, so there is something called a SAP GUI. SAP GUI is the graphical user interface. That is again that even that gets upgraded. So you need to download this particular software from the SAP portal. They call it the SAP Marketplace. From there you download it, and then that graphical user interface is used to connect to the application servers or the different uh, if there is a logon load balancing, you got something called logon pad. From that you log on to different kinds of, so there could be a group of users who are from the functional team, so they will have access to the development, the quality, or the sandbox system. So they will be given a specific IP address and system credentials so that they log on to the specific servers. But there could be a set of users across the company who will be using the logon load balancing, where they will use a particular different connection type, wherein they will log on to different application servers. Uh, Once here, the there is something called the kernel and the basis services, wherein the kernel is basically located, or it functions at the operating system level. The kernel as well as the basis services, or the SAP, you can say the software components, work in what I can say is they work seamlessly. So you should have basically the basis services or the basis components, software components, and the kernel. They have a specific compatibility within each other. So you cannot have a kernel of a different type and the basis components of a different type. They have to be as per the compatibility matrix which is given by SAP. So once that is done, when it is installed or whenever it is getting upgraded. Okay, so so this particular part takes care of the application, and only then it connects directly with the database management system, in the sense it connects you to your either your Oracle database or your HANA database, or so this is a typical basic architecture. Here it is showing only the SAP application, in the sense you could have multiple application servers, then you could have a central instance, and basically the application servers connect to the central instance, and then the central instance take care of connecting you to the database. And these are basically different work processes which are running here. So these work processes will provide you with the data. So user interface will get there are different there is something called a dispatcher, which takes care of, you know, taking up the query from the user, and then providing it with the data that is requested by the user. So that we'll see in detail how that is done. And then the database will again access it. The database is accessed here, and then it is read from here, and it is again sent back to the user. So that is the way typically it works. Again, later on, where earlier we only had the ABAP stack, but later on we also wanted to have other Java applications running. So then the SAP came up with something called SAP NetWeaver, which contains the ABAP as well as the Java architecture. So this shows in detail. So you have got something called the SAP GUI. This GUI is nothing but the SAP graphical user interface, and you can access the Java applications using your browsers. Okay, so basically the user is provided with a URL, and then the URL there is something called the Internet Communication Manager, SMICM. This takes care of handling the browser requests, and then it comes you have got a Java instance and an ABAP instance. So here you will find that whatever requests are coming from GUI, they come those are handled by the dispatcher, and then the dispatcher, it has its own queue, and then it will assign it to the different work processes, and these work processes will then send the request to the database, and then after seeking data from the database, it will send it back to the user. Okay, In the similar fashion, the requests which come from the browser, either HTTP or HTTPS, will be managed by the Internet Communication Manager. That will come to your Java virtual machines. From here, it will access the database schema and then again provide it back to the user. Then you have got the message server and the enqueue server. The message server basically manages uh, basically the queue of to the work processes, so that an enqueue server is the locking mechanism which is used for locking the objects. For example, a particular table is getting updated, then that table gets locked for it's for microseconds, and then it is released once it gets updated. Okay, so this takes care of that particular locking mechanism. Let's see the next. This is the application server. Again, it's specific to a ABAP. So here you will find you've got the users who are accessing through SAP GUI. You've got a dispatcher. This gateway is used to access basically if you want to access this gateway is required when you are accessing through an application server. So the application server uses this gateway services to access the other application servers or the central instance. Once the SAP GUI or once a user logs in from here, the dispatcher assigns that particular request to a particular work process. Now everything is managed in the shared memory. So here what happens is once you log in, it is assigned to a work process. Here context is meant by the user may be having specific authorizations. So all those authorizations are loaded into this context, and as per that only the data is can be viewed by the particular user. Here I can give you an example. Let us say this particular user has got access for a particular plant, let us say XYZ. So those details are loaded into this particular user context, and whenever data is fetched from the database here, if it is from another plant, say ABC, then that it cannot be viewed by this particular user. So that is the way the context is used. And it also has got, suppose the user is asking for, say, a different plant or this thing. So those details are stored here, again, which is used by the work process, and then the data is sent back to the user. So that is the basic mechanism how the data is requested, and again the information is sent back to the user. So like I explained, you have got your web client, in the sense you could have your browser, then the Internet Communication Manager takes care of this. You have got a Java instance. So this is the same like ABAP. This is for the Java instance. So this is earlier we had both Java and ABAP into a single instance, but later on then SAP decided that we should split into different. So you can have this Java instance installed on a separate server or on the same server. So this is the mechanism which comes from, say, the browser, the Internet Communication Manager. The server process is there, then it will access the database, and then it will again provide the web client with the information that is required. What we'll do is we'll see what are the basic or the broad responsibilities of a basis consultant. Once you become a consultant, what are the basic things that a basis consultant needs to do? So first thing is you need to understand what is client server technology, wherein like I said, client is basically your from wherever you are logging on. It could be your laptop, your desktop, your mobile, your tab, and so on. You should know the technology, how you are going to connect to your servers, what is the interface you are going to use. So there are various ways in which you can connect to your servers. Then there could be different operating systems, like for example, you could be connecting through using a Mac interface or the Apple. So how to connect using Apple and so on. So these two need to be known by a basis consultant. Then you also need to know what is this ABAP workbench. Uh, Basically, all the source SAP all has given you the entire source as well. So if you would like to modify any ABAP programs or the source code, then there is something called the SSCR keys, or you need to register with SAP that you are modifying this particular source code. So how that is done, that you need to know in case there is a requirement that you need to modify the source code. Then you need to have access to the SAP marketplace support portal in case you need to download the software. It could be the SAP GUI, or it could be some support patches, or notes you would like to download, or you would like to post some issues related to your system. Or if you could have if you want any, if you'd like to have any queries, then you can, this support portal access is required. Then comes the typical landscape consists of development, quality and production systems. And similarly for BW systems also, you will require a development, quality and production systems. In in some manufacturing units, you will also have other servers like the SAP Solution Manager. Solution Manager, I think it will be there with many. Then uh, you could have additional application servers because a single production system, if you have got say a small number of users, let's say 50 or 100, then it's okay. But if you have got more than say 1500 users or say 3000 users, then you will require additional application servers. Then you also need to understand how you will do SAP log and load balancing. Also, you could have sandbox servers or training servers wherein you will be having mm, to test new scenarios. You will require the sandbox servers. And maybe for training activities, you will require training servers. So again, it depends on the resources that your company is going to provide you with. But if that comes up, then that again becomes a responsibility of the basis team. Okay. As I said, business warehouse, again, it'll have the same kind of scenario where you will have the development, the quality, and the production. Now, how does change management takes place in any typical SAP environment is using the transport management system. See, what happens is if you want to make any change in the production system, that is not done directly on the production system. So whatever you do, or the customizing team or the function team has to test that in the quality system. So they do the customization or the ABAP programs in the development system. Then that gets transported to your quality system. The users or the functional team will test it in the quality system. Once that is approved by the users and it is satisfactory, then it is moved to the production system. So the change management is taken care of using transport management system, wherein the basis team has to transport this request from say development to quality to production. And also in many cases, if you want to transport these requests to the sandbox systems or the training systems, even that has to be done by the basis team. So movement of transport requests has to be done, that is the responsibility. Then there are different kinds of transport requests. One is workbench and the customer. The second is the customizing. Workbench is basically related to the ABAP programs which are made by ABAPers, and customizing requests are the requests made by the functional team. Okay. So depending on the request and the sequence, if you're using the SAP Solution Manager, there's something called Charm. Then you don't have to worry about the sequence of requests that are being transported. But if you're not using Charm, then you will have to you have to transport the request in a particular sequence as requested by the functional team or the ABAP team. Okay. Now, in addition to this, you could have the SAP Notes applications. Now, I will tell you what is the SAP Notes applications. Sometimes what happens is once the SAP is installed, there could be corrections to the SAP source code, or there could be some application changes, etc. So for that, SAP delivers SAP Notes. So these notes earlier we had to download and then upload them. If there are some manual corrections to it, then that has to be done by the ABAP team, and then the basis team proceeds once the manual corrections are done. Now, recently, SAP has come back, has reconfigured the entire thing by using digital notes, wherein those are downloaded directly to the development system and then applied. But you have to take care of the manual changes. So you need to go through each of the nodes, understand what are the prerequisites, and then apply the nodes. Okay. Once it is applied and it has gone to production, and if you would like to reverse it, then again you have to go back to the development system, again reverse it there, and then through a transport request only you can reverse it in the production system. Okay. So applying nodes is again the responsibility of the SAP basis team. Then comes business continuity. See, business continuity is required, or a disaster recovery server is required in case your production system goes down due to some reason. Maybe there is a network issue, or there is a major hardware issue, or maybe there is a big fire or something kind of a thing. If it's, let's say, in-house, then you need to have your your business should not stop. There should be business continuity. So in that case, you should have your disaster recovery plans and documentation ready. Especially what happens is whenever there is a disaster at a particular location, let us say there is an earthquake in a particular location A, then the people or the administrators in that location may not be available. So you need to have another team who will take up this disaster recovery plans, and they should be involved in the regular disaster recovery drills, which are conducted periodically, either every 3 months or every 6 months, and the documentation should be up to date, so that there is another team which should be able to bring up another server without your help, the primary team. So that is the whole thing of business continuity. So again, here you could have a parallel basis team located elsewhere who will take care of disaster recovery. Another aspect of refreshing quality or sandbox system is the latest data is required in the training systems or the sandbox system to test the scenarios. So periodically, the basis team has to refresh these quality and sandbox systems using the production data. SAP Solution Manager, there is not much here we have to do, unless you have got something like Charm which is implemented, or your support desk is implemented. In Solution Manager, you have to keep on upgrading to the latest versions which are available. Then you need to, as a basis team, you need to check whether your operating systems and database compatibility is there, because you could face problems related to your operating systems. Again, uh, because of your kernel, you may have to upgrade your kernel or your database patches and so on. So in case you are facing such kind of issues, then you have to analyze the operating system and the database logs for errors and take corrective action. There is a product availability matrix which is available on the SAP marketplace. In case you want to install new products or new software, then you can always refer this product availability matrix, and you can inform the management what kind of hardware or what kind of operating system or a database uh, you require. So again, that kind of support is expected from the SAP basis team. Whenever you are doing any installations of the R3 software, you have to take care of the readiness of the hardware, the disk space, the file system, whether they are created, the access to that, and basically the passwords, and how you are going to take care of the backups, etc. There are different kinds of guides which are available on the SAP marketplace. You have got something called a master guide, the planning guide, the installation guide, etc. So you need to refer all these before installation. There is something called a prerequisite check which is run, which ensures that your operating system, all your libraries, etc. are in place before you install the SAP software. So it is advisable that the basis team reads all these planning guides and basically all the guides properly, and do the entire installation properly. Otherwise, what happens is um, going ahead, many of the installations or upgrades fail because the basis team has not read the entire document. Then whatever software is available in your portal, that is as per the SAP license which you have agreed with SAP. So only that software is available in your login ID. So once you have an agreement with SAP, you ensure that all those softwares are available in your portal. Otherwise, what happens is if it is not there, then you need to inquire for it. Then comes the, for example, the SAP basis team has to tell the infrastructure team what kind of operating system you would require, what should be the CPU, what kind of file systems to be created, and so those requests you need to send it to your infrastructure team so that they will provide you with the required servers. Then, in addition to your SAP servers, you could have additional bolt-on systems like BW or payment servers, So those you need to consider when you are installing these SAP servers, and you also need to inform your infra team that you require these additional servers as well. In addition to these, you will require for installation, for example, you need to download the software on specific file system. So you need to tell them that okay, you require additional space. So additional space requirements also you need to tell them. Okay. Then you have to tell them once your, let us say your production system is up, then you need to inform them that you need to have disaster recovery servers. What should be the capacity of those servers? What should be the IP addresses, what should be the SIDs, and so on, how you're going to connect to the disaster recovery servers and so on. So again, you need to coordinate with your infra team for that. Again, that is the prime responsibility of the basis team. Then comes the daily and weekly monitoring of the production systems. You need to guide your monitoring team, what kind of daily reports you expect from your team, or what are the errors you are encountering on specific systems, or maybe it could be on your development systems also. So daily monitoring of the production systems has to be done. You need to ensure that the backups are in place. Otherwise, that is the bread and butter of any basis person. He has to ensure that the backup is in place, so that because what happens is, in case there is a failure, uh, then the management will always tell you to restore the data from the backup. So you have to ensure that you are taking the backup, and in addition to that, you are also restoring it to a sandbox system successfully. So you should have a process in place where you will take care of all these things. In case there is a error reporting, then you need to try to resolve this in a specific time frame. If you're not able to do that, then you need to escalate this to your top management, and also escalate to SAP. Uh, because there is, if you're not able to resolve it, there is, the basis team should not keep the problem with themselves. They should immediately escalate to their own seniors and to the top management. uh, Especially for production systems, it is expected that there is a 24 by 7 support. uh, I would like to say that SAP basis team also has to work on holidays and all, feasts and festivals. Okay. Uh, then comes the SAP user licensing audits. Oh yeah. Okay, okay. So basically, not much now. So, so basically, I was going to touch upon the client copy, the client export, the spool management, log and load balancing. Then there are different parameters which need to be taken care of by the basis team, wherein like instance parameters, the database parameters, and so on. The scheduling of background jobs, the yearly audits and compliances. So that brings me to the end of the SAP overview and the different functionality or the different functions or activities of a SAP basis consultant. So this is for the day actually. So if you have any questions, you can ask.